Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new Elder Scrolls Online video with me, Sherman. Today we're going to be going over gear sets and how they affect you in the game, and ways that you can combo two sets together, or even three, to possibly get a greater benefit, and a little bit of something else thrown in there for good measure kind of thing. So if you guys don't know, the game has two different gear types that you can wear, or two different gear sets types that you can wear. I shouldn't say two types of sets. Gear. Oh gosh. Alright, well here's the deal. You can't look at gear as just light, medium, and heavy armor. You have to look at gear as two different types of sets. We have primary sets and we have secondary sets. And you can look at it either way. You can say that that one set is primary, one's secondary, one's primary, one's secondary kind of thing. It just depends on how you see the game for its design structure. And it's really easy to spot these sets. I mean, for example, there is we'll go through the crafted stuff because that's the easier one to look at. Pretty much every set in here, besides 4, is called a secondary set. Every other set is a primary set. And there's only four primary sets in the crafted section. And the reason why we have less primary sets than we do secondary sets is to give us more variety in our secondary choices, so we have more build options. Now I know it sounds kind of weird, right? But if you look at the 4 primary sets, Kvetch's Gladiators, Night Mother's Gaze, Hunting's Rage, and Laws of Julianus, you could even say that these are secondary sets and all the other ones are primary sets, because the other ones are basically what determine your build. For example, if you're playing a healer and you run 5 pieces of Seducers, it gives you 2 Magicka recovery, it gives you max Magicka, and it gives you reduced cost of your Magicka abilities by 8%. This is really good for a healer because a healer can use this to get greater heals. Or not greater heals, but to get better recovery, get better Magicka, and to get reduced cost in their healing abilities. Now, a primary set to use for that, with that secondary set, would be something like Combat Physicians. And the reason you'd wear Combat Physicians with it is because this one gives you max Magicka, 2 things of crit, and when you critically heal a friendly target, you grant them a damage shield that absorbs 8,195 damage for 8 seconds. This effect can occur once every 6 seconds. You could get this in jewelry, a couple pieces of gear, and then go after the Seducer set and craft it in the 5-1-1 light, medium, and heavy. So you could wear 2 pieces of this on your body, say the gloves and the belt, because you want to craft a set and have a certain look. Then you could craft the rest of it in Seducers to look like what you want, so you're not losing that appearance that you might want or whatever. And this is how the game works. There's roughly about 20 of these different sets in the game. In fact, I'll just run over them. So I already showed you Kvetch's Gladiator. Oh my gosh. Kvetch's Gladiator, Night Mother's Gaze, Hunting's Rage, and Laws of Julianus. And then Combat Physician is another one. There is others in the game like this that share similar values. And that's Infallible Mage is one. Mother's Sorrow is one. Down there is Treasure Hunter, if I can get to it without my computer freaking out. But we got Treasure Hunter right here, and these all share a very similar 5-piece compared to all the other sets. All the other sets are very similar as well. You got Serene's Grip, you got Vampire Lord, you've got Undaunted Unweaver, Stendar's Embrace. These are all what's called similar or secondary sets because of what they do. They go with one of these primary sets and they give it the extra benefits that you might need for your build or for what you're trying to do with your character. Now, some of them aren't the perfect setup because they're not going to give you all these super great bonuses and all this kind of stuff, but what they do for you is they give you a nice starting point for your character to move you into better gear later on. So like if you were to wear Mother's Sorrow in the beginning, because it's the only drop set you can get. Oh, and there's Wise Mage also. in the light armor. We'll get to Wise Mage here in a second. But Mother's Sorrow, if you were to wear Mother's Sorrow in the beginning, because it's the only drop set you can get in the world, you get this set, and you combine it with any other set in the game that's magic based, and it's going to work for you, because it's going to give you a lot of critical. Well, in the beginning of the game, you don't need a lot of spell damage and stuff like that. You want to get those higher crits because you don't have all the armor passives unlocked. And then when you get further into the game, Mother's Sorrow becomes another set that you can use in heavy armor, possibly, to give you the bonus in the 5-piece that gives you something similar to wearing light armor. Because light armor gives you high crit. It gives you other things. It gives you spell penetration, things like that. But for somebody wanting to play like a Magicka tank who wants to get higher crit capabilities because of this, that, or whatever reason, Mother's Sorrow would be a good choice for that. But in the beginning, you're not going to need to worry about, like I said, you're not worrying about getting high spell damage because you're not going to be running a lot of veteran mode dungeons. But by the time you get to 45, where vet dungeons come out, then you can move into a different set because you can start running dungeons at vet mode, and you can still run this gear set. But by then, you'll have other gear sets available to you that you can go farm through dungeons and everything. And you don't have to get the perfect setup while you're leveling. You just need a set of it. So you could go run Vollenfell a couple times, get a full set of Treasure Hunter, and have Treasure Hunter for 10 levels to get you, past the CP mark. And then once you get past that CP mark, you could just burn through CP, get up to CP 160, and then go after the gear you want. So it gives you these different options. And here's Wise Mage. This is one of the other sets like that. So, and like I said, these two types of sets, they combo together really well. It doesn't matter what you're wearing, as long as you're wearing one of these primary sets, like Mother's Sorrow and Netch's Touch together, for example. That's a pretty powerful combination. This gives you a ton of crit. This gives you one extra thing of crit, some max magicka, some spell damage, and 450 spell damage to your shock abilities. So if you're playing a Sork and you're running Mother's Sorrow, that's a not a super powerful combination, but it's a good combination to have in the beginning till you can craft Julianus, or you can go get one of these other sets from like one of these dungeons or trials. That's going to give you a better benefit. So you do have a few options here in how you can play the game. And then once you get to the point where you can look at the game and see what kind of gear you really want, maybe you want to go with one of the other 5-piece primary sets, and you decide, you know what, I saw this Scathing Mage that drops inside of Imperial City Prison. I'm going to go farm this out. And I'm going to go get it in 5 pieces of the light type up here, the chest, the legs, the robes, that kind of thing. I'm going to go get it there, and you get it there. Well, now you got to get a secondary set, so you decide that you want to use Healer's Habit with it for your healer. Now, why would this be a good combination? Well, it wouldn't be the great combination, but it'd be a really good combination, because one, Healer's Habit's going to give you 8% healing done, or minor mending, which is 8% healing done, which is very similar to that of a Templar. So if you're running like a Nightblade, a Sork, a DK or something, you want that extra healing for now, that's a really good way to go for a little while. It's something to carry you until you can get a mix of Scathing Mage and Spell Power Cure, maybe. Because even though healers aren't meant to do damage, they're meant to heal. And they are. They're designed to do healing first, damage second. But like I said, this is what we call, we have a conundrum here. We can either call this the primary set because this builds into your role, and this your secondary set because it builds into giving you a benefit to your role, which is, it would, even as a healer. Having extra spell critical and extra spell damage is going to be more beneficial to you, because that higher spell damage and this higher crit is going to make your heals hit for a lot more. And the higher crit value means that you're going to crit more often, and your heals are going to crit more often, which means you're going to have greater heals, and it's just going to stack with your character as you progress. Then on top of that, you have Spell Power Cure down here, which is doing these two things. But just imagine combining Spell Power Cure and Combat Physician, where when you critically heal a friendly target, you give them an 8,000 point damage shield, which Then you get this, when you heal a friendly target at 100% health, you have a 50% chance to increase their weapon and spell damage by 258 for 10 seconds. Well, that combination is really good. And the reason why it's really good is because you could get spell power cure in either the chest, the leggings, the boots, the gauntlets, and the belt really easy running in that on normal. And then you could go get the jewelry and stuff from running the Wayrest Sewers on vet mode, because it's not as challenging to do as White Gold Tower, and you can get that build put together, and then you can start running those things on a greater difficulty. And it's not going to be, it's not that it's going to make it easier for you, it's just that it's going to give you something that's going to make it easier for the rest of your team to run that dungeon. So you're going to be able to give them a damage shield, you're going to be able to give them this heal, and as long as that damage shield's up, you're going to be over-healing them anyway, so it's going to be constantly reapplying this thing every 10 seconds on them, because that damage shield's going to be reapplying every 6 seconds. So it's a good combination when you do something like that. So that's just with the light armor, guys. There's a whole bunch of sets for medium that are like this as well, to where you can get these primary sets. One of the primary sets in medium is Archer's Mind. We're going to go on down here to the next one, which is not Oblivion's Edge. It is Leviathan. This is a drop set. This is a really good drop set, in fact, inside of Crypt of Hearts for a DPS who wants to get a high crit build and wants to build maybe into sharpened weapons and Spriggans to get all that extra penetration. It's a good good set for that, but it just doesn't give you a lot of weapon damage. It's not going to give you the highest weapon damage you can possibly get, but it is a good combination. So there's Leviathan. On down the line here, there is Stormmaster. This is another great primary set, and the reason I say these are primary and the other ones are secondary, or vice versa, it depends on how you look at the game. I say that this type of set is primary over this set, because even though this set makes it goes into create your build better, and this set just adds to that, you could look at it the other way around, because you could say that this goes into your build better, and because you're making DPS, and this just adds to your DPS. So you have a different way of looking at it. And so you can say this or that or whatever, but there's two types of sets in the game, and I don't know what to call them: a crit set and a bonus set. I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can look at it. So going on down the line here, we have Tooth Throw, which is also a prime set, and then moving on down, there's Vicious Serpent and Viper's Sting. And there's even more than this, because we got a few more sets with a few other DLCs. Blood Drinker is like a primary set. It's a really pretty good one if you want a bleed damage build. We got Infectors, which is a really good primary set. In Morrowind, Shadows of the Hiss gave us a primary set, I believe. Widowmaker, which is a really good one as well. And then I don't think Dark Brotherhood gave us one, except for the Crafted Kvetch's Gladiator. And then Thieves Guild didn't give us any, because everything here is secondary. Everything, all the sets here are secondary, and all these sets are secondary. Even all the sets down here that can be crafted are secondary. But there's a lot of good choices in here, depending on how you want to make your build and how you want to use it towards the rest of the game. Now, one of the things that I got asked the other day, before I go too far though, I want to show you guys the heavy armor one, because there is a heavy armor one which is called Berserking Warrior right here, and this is the heavy armor primary or secondary or whatever you want to call it, but it has the crit set. And then if you look at all these other sets, like if you took Brands of the Imperium and mixed it with Crest of the Cyrodiil on a tank, it doesn't seem like it would fit, like they would fit together, because they're using two very similar gear types. You're using one that gives you 2 max health, healing done, and then when you take damage, this, and then this down here gives you just a little bit of weapon damage and max health, 4% healing taken, and then when you deal melee damage, you apply Major Defile. Like that combo together doesn't really work. But if you take Crest of the Cyrodiil and Berserking Warrior, now that makes sense because you're going to get these two things of crit, this one weapon damage, and you're going to get this 5-piece bonus. Then you go down here and you get this one weapon damage, this max health, this 4% healing taken, and all this, this major defile stuff whenever you deal melee damage. So this kind of combination is a really powerful combination for PvP, but at the same time, it's not as powerful as you would think for a tank. Because a tank isn't going to be running into a dungeon pulling off 40k, 50k DPS. Most of the time, you'll be lucky if you can pull 25k DPS on your tank. But you're not there to pull 25k DPS. You're there to do your job, which is tanking. Well, if you're tanking and you're pulling, let's say you're doing your tanking job, you build to be a tank first, then you build into your damage because you get your tanking set up, right. Then you build into the damage side of that build. Now you have a tank that can do anywhere between, say, 5, 10, 15, 20k damage, per second. So let's just say your tank's doing 15k damage per second. Now I'm going to do some math with a calculator, guys. This is going to be a little crazy, but we're going to use a base value number. Let's say that your average DPS does 30k. Okay, so you're in a dungeon, you have two people doing 30k. That's going to be 60k DPS. Now let's say your tank is doing 15k with it. And not 15k all the time, but just 15k damage with theirs. Okay? So because you're applying some caltrops to get an extra dot, you're using dual axes on your back bar to get an extra bleed, you're using the sword and board to get that, that minor maim and breaking that armor, so that your not only your bleeds and your caltrops are going to hit harder, but also your DPSs are. So you let's just hypothetically say that's what your DPS is per second. Now, you have that 60k. Now let's just hypothetically say your healer's DPS is 15k per second. That's going to make your total group's DPS 90k per second. Now in the most perfect situation, because we're doing this based off of a theory, in the most perfect situation, we would take this 90k and divide it against a boss's health. So most bosses in vet dungeons, at the end, have 5,400,000 health. So we divide that. Now, it's not going to be like this, because we're doing it the wrong way. We need to divide it against the other factors. So we're going to do this. The 5.4 million health divided by 90,000. Oh, clear that. Equals 60 seconds. It would take you 60 seconds to down that boss in the most perfect situation. That means 1 minute. Now, we know it's not going to work that way because of moving and everything else, blocking, and the mechanics aren't going to allow you to do it in 60 seconds. But what it would allow you to do is it would allow you to do it in about 2-3 minutes. Because, trust me, 60 seconds doesn't seem like long. It seems like a lifetime when you're fighting a boss. And this is how you can get through these dungeons a lot quicker, is because when you have your base average of your tank, your healer, and DPS, all doing a base average of a certain value of damage, then you can easily get these numbers of 90k for your whole group. Now let's take this a step further. Let's say you have 12 or 10 DPS all doing 30k. So that's 30k times 10. That's 300,000 DPS per second. Now, we're going to take both your tanks, your main tank and your off tank, your healers, both your healers, doing another 60k DPS. Because both your tanks are going to do 15k. That's 30k together. Your healer's going to do 15k, which is another 30k, which is another 60,000 DPS. Now, I'm just going to throw a number up here. This is roughly about your average end-game trial boss health. Now let's do this. Let's divide it by 360,000. Oops, clear that. 360,000, not 360. That would just be one-shotting them. So 360,000, because this is what your group's average DPS per second would be. It would take you 97 seconds to defeat that boss. Do you know this isn't even over 2 minutes? Because it's 120 seconds to make 2 minutes. This is like a minute and a half on a 35 million health boss. In the perfect situation, you'd be able to do that. And that's why when looking at the game, I started looking at these different gear sets, and I said, Berserking Warrior, we only have one of these in heavy armor. Why would we only have one of these? And then I asked somebody about this, and they were like, oh, that's for DPS. And I'm thinking to myself, well, there's a whole bunch of sets like this in the game, like Beekeeper and Brands of the Imperium, Cyrodiil's Crest, Defending Warrior, Druga's Heritage. They're all very similar in what they do. And like Eben, these are all like these prime sets for tanking. But then you have all these sets like this that are like secondary to your build, because they just add to your build regardless. It doesn't matter how you put it together. This could be a primary set for a DPS. This could be secondary. But on a healer, their primary set could be could be Healer's Habit down here, but this could be their secondary set. And that's because whatever role you build for, you're going to build for its primary function first. So you're going to build for healing first, for a healer, damage second. You're going to build for a tank first, damage second on a tank. On a DPS, you're going to build for damage first, the other thing secondary. So you're going to go with like Burning Spellweave and Scathing Mage. Now, the only reason I'm showing you guys these two sets, and not including in monster sets and three-piece jewelry sets, because you have to look at jewelry sets and monster sets in the same fashion. So you have these sets, right, which give you a 3-piece bonus, right, with a 2-piece bonus. Now, if we go look at jewelry sets, we have 1 stamina, 2 stamina sets that are really pretty decent combined together. They're not great. We do need another jewelry set for stamina, but you could use something else from another drop set. You could use a 3-piece jewelry set from them, and it's still going to give you the same bonus as what you're seeing here. If I went and got, say, in the medium section, let's just say I went and grabbed Fjord's Legacy, it's going to give me 3 pieces of it. It's going to give me weapon damage and weapon critical, which would be really good for a DPS character to have when you incorporate a monster set like Celine's with it, because then you're going to get extra max magicka with that, and you're going to get, when you deal direct melee damage, you have a 15% chance to call on a primal spirit that deals X amount of physical damage. Well, that kind of combination is going to give you another access to something else, and these are called Master and Maelstrom items. Now, I would pull them up right now, guys, but there's only 2 sites that show it, really, and a lot of their information's outdated, so I can't really go to those sites and say, hey, check these out, because they haven't been keeping them up to date. So, but as you can see, those things, those kind of combinations are going to be really good, because you could take this and mix it with that Fjord set, or you could take this and mix it with with this weapon set, say Eagle Eye, where it's going to give you the 1 crit, and it's going to increase your bow range by 3 meters. So that means when you're in a dungeon or something, you can actually sit there and range attack these enemies at range, and then with like endless hail and all that, because that's all going to be increased by 3 meters. And then you get that extra crit on top of it. And you might not get an extra weapon damage or something like that, but you get all that extra crit, and you're running, say, 5 pieces of Julianus, or not Julianus, Hunting's Rage with this jewelry, and that's Celine's. Or you're running 5 pieces of Vicious Serpent with this jewelry and Celine's. So there's a lot of these primary sets give you a lot of variety, because you could even go with Hunter's Mind with that. You know, you could go with a lot of different sets in here and go, huh, you know what, I like this combo with, I like this primary set, like say I like Storm Masters, because it gives me this extra shock damage when I do a fully charged heavy attack. But I want to get a little bit extra penetration with my character, so Spriggans looks really good. But you know what, I don't really like Spriggans because it doesn't give me extra crit. So if I went and got that Fjord's Legacy in the 3-piece jewelry, where it's going to give me extra weapon damage and extra crit, and then I go grab Celine's, or I go grab Stormfist, for example, on a Sork. Just going to show you guys this, because it is pretty powerful, the combination here. But I go grab Stormfist, it's going to give me some stamina recovery with that Fjord's, and then on top of it, it's going to give, whenever I deal damage, I do this shock damage, and I do this 8,000 physical damage. As a stamina Sork, I already get shock damage bonus of 5%. I already get 5% physical damage bonus. So this, with Storm Masters, and with that Fjord's Legacy, it would be a really good combination. The only thing is that I don't boost my Magicka up any higher than what it's already allowed. So I've got to find a way to boost my Magicka up even a little bit higher. So I have to go through and make other adjustments in my character to do that. Through either glyphs or through other means to boost my stamina up a little bit, because I'm using something that gives me a lot of weapon damage but no max stamina. So you have to look at how the gear benefits you on that factor. It would have been a lot better if I went with Celine's or Celatrex, because these ones give me a max stamina boost, which my character really needs, because I don't get any other max stamina. I would be using a set that gives me max damage and then recovery. Which is, either way, you know, it's still good, but I'm just saying that you have variety here. And that's pretty much how gear works in the game. You don't have to play by these rules that I'm telling you guys, but when looking at the game's design and you look at everything and you break it down, you see that there's a lot of good combinations in there, because it does give you a variety of different options. For light armor, you have Julianus, which can be crafted. So Julianus is going to be like one of the primary sets most people are going to want to use for most of their builds. And then when you combo it in with a lot of these other things, like for a healer, Healing Mage, or Healer's Habit, or Lamia's Song, excuse me, or Light Speaker, with Julianus is really powerful, because this one's going to increase all the spell damage you do with your Restoration Staff. Then it means all your heals are going to get increased by 450. Then you have Julianus, well, you can go all 3 of your jewelry pieces with recovery on them, because you don't need all that extra spell damage for damage. You just need it for healing. So you're getting that 300 spell damage from Julianus with that extra 129 spell damage there, which would put you at about 2k in a gold staff. And then you have that 450 spell damage on top of it for all the light and heavy attacks you do, and then all the healing you do. That's a lot of powerful heals coming out of that Resto Staff. So that might be a good combination for a Sork to use, or a Nightblade to use, or a Warden to use, or sorry, a Sork or a DK to use to get them going, because a Nightblade gets healing effect through their passive, and so does the Warden. And so does the Templars. So maybe they don't want to run that set. Maybe they want to run, you know, this Combat Physician with Healing Mage instead. Or maybe they want to run Lamia's Song, so that way whenever they activate an ultimate, they can heal their allies for 30 health per point of ultimate cost. You guys seen the ultimate in the Resto Staff tree? It costs 70 ultimate. Now we're going to times this by 30. It's going to give you a 2,100 point heal every time you cast it. Do you know how long it takes me to build 70 ultimate? No time at all. So I can build my 70 ultimate, fire this off, give a 2,100 point heal. Fire the ultimate, 2,100 point heal. And I can do this like every 15-20 seconds, because it doesn't take that long to build up that ultimate. So it's a really kind of a nice combo there. But this is what the game allows. If you guys haven't seen Alcast's new video, he explains this. There's too many different options in the game for gear. You take Infallible Mage and put it with Lamia's Song, you have an evil healer. And a very evil healer, because they're going to gain Minor Slayer at all times, and on top of that, they're going to be able to apply minor vulnerability to the enemies, increasing the damage taken by 8%. And they could do that with a resto staff. So not only is that healer getting 5% more damage, they're also getting, when your fully charged heavy attacks deal an additional 903 damage. Enemies you damage with a fully charged heavy attack are afflicted with minor vulnerability for 10 seconds, increasing the damage taken by 8%. Now, this isn't one where, oh, you don't want to stack it. This is one where you want to make sure you're stacking it. Why? 100% uptime. Now think about you have your 4 DPS, or you have 4 magic DPS. They're all applying this, because they're all keeping their heavy attacks going at different times. So they're just reapplying it. They're just keep stacking it. And it's not going to stack up extra 8%. They're just going to keep that 8% on there indefinitely, without the use of shock glyphs and trying to do all this min-maxing kind of thing. You can just go get this armor and be like, hey, guess what? Heavy attack. You've got minor vulnerability for 10 seconds. Minor vulnerability from a lightning staff glyph, shock glyph, is 4 seconds. So that means you have to have that going up every 4 seconds to keep that minor vulnerability. You can't do that. You can't even do it with a charge staff. But this is a guarantee. 100% uptime by all your Magicka DPS, including your healers. Why would you want it like that? Well, everyone's going to be dealing 903 extra damage with their heavy attacks. So even the healer's going to get that. Well, why do we need that much of an uptime of minor vulnerability? To kill the boss the fastest you can. And then the fact that everybody that has this set equipped in your Magicka side is going to get Minor Slayer at all times. That means your healers, your DPS, is going to have extra damage against their enemies at all times. Now you can combo this with Burning Spellweave. You can combo this with Netch's Touch. You can combo this with Light Speaker. Heck, you can combo this with Spell Power Cure and have a hellacious DPS. Or you can have one person on your healers running this, one running Spell Power Cure. You can have one person running this. Or you can have one person running Combat Physicians, one of your healers, and then you could have them running this, Twilight Remedy. So whenever an ally activates your synergy, like your Spear Shards, whatever else, they heal themselves for 18,920 over 10 seconds and gain Minor Force, increasing their critical damage by 12% for 10 seconds. That's longer than the mages, or longer than the Warhorn does. And then you think about Warhorn on top of it, which applies Minor Force. Well, I have this already. I don't need Warhorn. I'll just use this. So you have a way of doing this. And then you take this and put it with Infallible Mage, which gives you this bonus of Minor Slayer and Minor Aegis at the same time on a healer. That's a powerful, deadly combination. And that's how the game's designed. It's designed to give us freedom of choice, freedom to choose how we want to put together our characters. Because you can also go with a weapon set like, say, Willpower, which gives you extra max magicka, extra spell damage. You could go with Imperial Wrath, which gives you extra spell damage and extra spell critical. Or you can go with Grace of the Ancients, which gives you max magicka, maximum increase of max magicka by 4%. And then you can grab a monster set. Even for a healer you can do this, and still use stuff like Combat Prayer and all that to give you the 2 5-piece bonuses. And you can run a set like Chokethorn, which is going to give you extra magic recovery, plus this really great heal over time. Or you can run something like Sentinels of Kuguzma. Sorry, I can't even pronounce this. It gives you 2% healing done, and then when you heal a friendly target, you have a 10% chance to summon a Dwemer Spider that heals them for so much health every second, and restores so much stamina to you and your allies within 5 meters every 1 second for 8 seconds. And then this can happen every 8 seconds. Now just imagine a healer running this in your group. And because you want to help out with giving stamina out, but you don't want to throw a bunch of spear shards and everything else. This is giving them 524 for 8 seconds. So in 8 seconds, you're going to give them 4,192 stamina. That's a little bit more than spear shards will. Over 8 seconds. So you could do this until you unlock orbs, or you have orbs or whatever, so you can feed those out, or you have those other things. But even then, do you want to be feeding your people all these different things when you could be feeding your group extra damage? And how are you feeding them extra damage? Because you're doing the extra damage yourself as a healer. You're hitting the enemy with a couple dots. Like if you're playing a Templar, throw out the burning one, throw out a spear shard, and tell them don't activate that spear shard until it ends, or near its ending time. So that way it gives it time to do its damage. Okay, activate. Boom. Now they get that bonus of their attributes back, and they get the damage from that spear shard, which means that damage is ticking for 2k or something, or 1.5, 1.8, and then you have your burning one, which is, the things where you throw the glowing balls of fire. You just have those two abilities on there, and then you're using Ritual of Retribution, which is a ground circle AoE heal that takes damage and heals at the same time. If you have those 3 abilities up inside of a dungeon or trial, that means you are ticking about 6k damage a second right there. Then you include your heavy attacks, which will tick for about 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 6k, depending on how much spell damage you have and critical you have. So you take that 6 and 6 and put it together. That's 12k DPS per second. As long as those things stay active. Those 3 other abilities stay active. How easy would it be for a healer to activate those 3 other abilities along with healing, along with their heavy attacks? Quite easily, actually. It's quite easy. I do it all the time with my healer. Now I can be doing that with Burning Spellweave, or not Burning Spellweave, but Spell Power Curon and the Combat Physician, and then I'm not having to cast an extra damage shield on my allies from my Resto Staff. I'm not having to cast or try and cast something that's going to boost everybody's weapon damage. Instead, I can actually do this. I can switch over to a Lightning Staff and start using a Lightning Staff on one bar when I do heavy attacks instead of the Resto Staff. So that way I can do extra shock damage along with extra damage or extra AoE damage, because that shock damage is, when it ends on that heavy attack, is going to explode outwards, doing damage to multiple enemies. And since my job isn't to place down walls of lightning and everything, it's just to get those heavy attacks off, I get that heavy attack off and I can do more damage for the group, because now I have another AoE. It's not a massive AoE, but it's an extra AoE, which means I can help do more damage with the group. And I can have a couple heals on that bar as well. So I could have my damage abilities with that Ritual Retribution with a Lightning Staff, and that other Resto Staff on the back bar for all my heals from the Resto Staff, and some of my heals from my class, maybe a few other things. And then I can do that while I'm playing with my group. And now I can push that 15k DPS a lot easier, because I'm playing in a Templar. And because I have 10% shock damage, I might be a Dark Elf, which is going to give me an extra 2%. So I push that Mighty or Elemental Expert up to give me 13%, and now I have 15% shock damage on a Templar. Or maybe I push up my, I play a High Elf one, and I have 4% lightning damage, or shock damage, so I put 1%, I take it up to 11%, making me have 15% more shock damage. There's a lot of different ways that you can set up a character in this game, guys, and some of them can be really, really powerful. So you can do a lot of minimaxing, you can do a lot of different things, and come up with a lot of different combos. And when I tell people that this game has one of the largest build diverse systems I've ever seen, I am not kidding you. Because it does give you that much build diversity when you look at the gear in this kind of order, where you say, oh, look it, I'm going to use Laws of Julianus, or I'm going to use Wise Mage, or I'm going to use this Infallible Mage, or I'm going to use Treasure Hunter, or I'm going to use Combat Physician, or I'm going to use Scathing Mage as my secondary set for my healer, and then for my primary set, I'm going to use any one of these other sets in the game that looks like it could work really well for me for now until I can get one of these other better sets. Okay, I've got my set. I'm out farming my new set. I get my full set of it. Now all I have to do is make some adjustments to my build, get this gear and this gear. Now I'm done. Okay, well I really don't want to get that set for now. I'm going to go for this jewelry set with this monster set because I think it would give me a better benefit. So I'm looking at my monster set. I see this one. It gives me 2 healing, all that kind of stuff. I go in here and I look at these monster sets or these jewelry sets, and I say, you know what? This would be better for me right now, this willpower one, because I'm a Nightblade. Being a Nightblade, I get extra crit anyways, so I don't need extra crit. I just need this. And this extra spell damage is going to be really powerful, especially with this, combat physician that does not have any spell damage. So I can put a couple extra pieces of spell damage on there, 1 recovery, and if I use Chokethorn, Chokethorn is going to give me an extra magic recovery, so I'm going to have 2 things of magic recovery on there, and I'm going to be using a Resto Staff on one bar, Lightning Staff on the other. Well, that's not really going to work for me because of this or this. I'll just grab Sentinel's Razagoon, which is going to give me 2% healing done. Now, if I go for Wrath of the Imperium, that's going to give me an extra spell damage and extra crit. It won't give me extra max magicka. Well, the Combat Physician gives me max magicka, 2 things of crit, and that ability to apply that damage shield. So I'm going to stick with that for now until I get to a higher, I can get to the better gear, and then I'm going to get Infallible Mage, and I'm going to get the Twilight's Remedy, and I'm going to combine them together. So one will give me minor Aegis at all times, the other one's going to give me minor Slayer at all times. So I can run those 2 combinations. This one's going to give me some magic recovery, some spell damage. I can make the jewelry have 2 things, or 1 thing of spell damage with 2 things of recovery, or 3 things of recovery. It doesn't matter because I'm going to be getting that 5% extra damage on my character. So I could go 1 thing of spell damage, 2 things of recovery, get 3 things of magic recovery across the board on my character. And on top of that, whenever an ally activates my synergy, it heals him and grants them minor force. And on top of that, I'm also getting the bonus from the Infallible Mage, which is minor Slayer. And this right here, when I use a fully charged heavy attack, I deal an additional 903 damage. Enemies you damage with fully charged heavy attacks are afflicted minor vulnerability. Now I'm going to be able to help my group apply that minor vulnerability at all times. Well, maybe I don't want to run Infallible Mage because it's a really hard set to get because it drops in all 3 of these. Maybe I just want to go over here and get Wise Mage, which is similar. It just doesn't give me that 5% increase in damage. Because by the time you're wearing this gear, it isn't going to matter what your stats look like. As long as you have a high magicka and a decent health pool, this is going to give you the best options for DPS and healing and all that other stuff, because you're going to be able to do a multitude of different things for your group and the healing on top of it. But you don't have to play that way. See, that's why they give us the option of using things like Wise Mage and Worm Cult together, is to give us variety in play, to give us a variety of choices instead of saying, oh, well, I just want the best DPS. I'm going to use this and this. Or I want this and this. This gives you a huge variety of different choices in play. You could say, you know what, I want to run Combat Physician with this one, with Treasure Hunt, or not Treasure Hunter, sorry, not Treasure Hunter, blah. But with this one right here. So that way, whenever I drink a potion, I get Major Expedition, allowing me to move around the room a little bit better. Or maybe I want to run this one, Shroud of the Lich, for when I fall below 33% magicka, it increases my magic recovery by 1,032 for 20 seconds, and the effect can happen every minute. Shouldn't be dropping below that much, but if I do, I have this thing here that will help me get through it. Maybe I want to run Sanctuary. But maybe I want to run Sanctuary, and instead of playing a healer, I want to play a tank. So I'm going to wear the jewelry in this, I'm going to wear the gloves, and I'm going to get 2 staves. Now I'm going to go get me a 5-piece Julianus to go with it, so that way I can be kind of tanky. I can be, because I can craft the Julianus in the style or the materials I want. I can wear this in a belt, or I can wear the shoulders, or I can wear the chest, or I can wear the legs, or the boots, or whatever, and I can get the jewelry, and that'll be easy to get, because this is Bandish Cells. And I can have this on a tank for a little while. And I can be like a support tank. Just imagine a Templar tank running this, and being able to run a lot of heals. You can run a resto staff on one bar to help out with your group. You wouldn't even need to run a resto staff. You could run a sword and board on one bar, and on the other bar a lightning staff or something. Or an ice staff. Because you would be able to drop down your own heals from your class, because you're a Magicka build. But that's what I'm getting at, guys. There's a lot of different options, lots of different varieties in the game. Take your time. Look at the gear sets. Find stuff that's going to work for you in the beginning when you first hit CP 160. Then build into other sets as you progress. Because that's how this game works. You progress your character up to CP 160, up to that 300 CP, up to the max CP, and then when you're at max CP, you're going to be able to farm out better sets. Because your character is a little bit more powerful. Now let's say you have these better sets. Now you can go farm these other things that were a little bit harder before, because you've got these better sets that are allowing you to do a little bit more. Now you can move up to the other stuff, and move up to the next set, and up to the next set. Eventually all the way up to being a really powerful healer. Or a really powerful tank, or a really powerful DPS. Now just imagine this, because I know a lot of people are going to go, well, what if I want to run Alkosh on my tank, like I've been doing? Well, what if you ran Alkosh on a DPS? Okay, look at what Alkosh gives you. It gives you this weapon critical, because it's a secondary set. Run this on a DPS, and you can run it on 2 DPS, so that way you can make sure that this will stay up really good all the time. So you could have your off tank running this, because he doesn't have to build to be a tank. He could actually build to be somewhat DPS-y. And this he could wear, and he could wear this with Berserking Warrior, which is going to give him really good crit damage. But I probably wouldn't do that. I'd probably run Hunting's Rage so I can get that one little chunk of max stamina. And then that way I have that little bit of extra. Then I can put some health glyphs on my jewelry, or on my character and all this kind of stuff. I can run Alkosh in jewelry and boots, and then a weapon or a shield. And then I can go get myself a Maelstrom weapon for 1 bar, for my sword and board bar. On my back bar I can run dual wield with dual axes. Or I could run a 2-handed axe, and I can get it from Alkosh. Because I'm wearing the boots, or I'm wearing the belt from this set to give me that little bit of extra. But that's my point, is you could do this with an off tank, and then a DPS could run this as well. So that way you have them every 10 seconds, somebody's throwing out a spear shard, so they can activate this and keep this active all the time during the fight. And then you have a guaranteed 100% uptime of it. Now, what other set could this DPS use with this? Well, this is the cool part, because that DPS can use any of the other medium secondary sets. So they could use Treasure Hunter, they could use Hunting's Rage, they could run the same thing that the tank is running, just be it in medium. Or they could run Storm Masters, they could run Tooth Row, they could run Vicious, well, they wouldn't want to run Vicious Serpent, but they could run Viper's Sting. But they have a lot of choices in there, and a lot of more variety. And that's one of the things that even Alcast was talking about in his video, is having that extra, like knowing how to put together a good group, so that way you can keep permanent uptime of different things. But unfortunately, guys, I'm getting to the end of this video. I want you to figure out on your own what's going to be best for you, and that's what Alcast is telling you. He wants you guys to see what's going to be best for you and decide on your own, because there's just too many options that are viable and available. So, I want to thank you all for watching. If you guys enjoyed this video, hit that like button. It'd be greatly appreciated. If you guys want to see more videos by me, hit that subscribe button. Other than that, until next time, guys, have a wonderful day, and I will see you all later. Bye.